Hello, everyone. Demetrius Gelatis here with Jesse Engel. What's up, Jesse?
Oh, nothing too much here. Just chilling,
Don't
outside of
jump.
the.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was
I see.
about to until you text me and asked me to do a pod. I was like, maybe it's worth sticking
Oh
around.
man, I see
So
it. For people that are audio only, Jesse's got the virtual background with the Golden Gate Bridge. And anyway, I'm sorry. It's a moment of silence. Um, I don't know, man. We don't need to get into this, but like, I still like to joke about stuff. I know that we're getting a little afraid to make jokes these days, but anyway, let's move forward. I wanted to chat with you. I hadn't talked to you for a while. You just got back from a couple of events. So what I'd like to do is just catch up a little bit on what you've been doing, and we'll just talk a little bit. I have a few things on my mind to share too, but which tournaments did you just get back from, Jesse?
yeah, so was down at the two WNT events in Florida. One was in Fort Lauderdale, or right outside of it. It's like a small suburb, and the other one was at in Orlando at like the Caribe Royale.
Okay.
So went to those two. Did not have that great of results. Honestly, probably got the results for what I played, I guess, if I really look back. With a slightly better draw, I definitely, maybe could have leaked into the cash, but it is what it is. It's just part of the variance of tournaments, as you know, and especially when you're not a ranked player, when you get the seeding, makes it a little bit trickier. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I mean, so the first one, that one was kind of goofy. It was kind of like a standard pool room event. You get there, and I think they had like 11 tables they could use, and it's kind of the classic, like where they have their TV table set up perfectly. It's like a brand new matchroom table, 4-inch pockets. Then they had like four outside tables that were just as good, brand new cloth. And then the other tables were like a mix between like 4 1/8 all the way up to like almost 4.5-inch pockets that played a little gaffy with slightly older cloth. So it was just kind of a crapshoot on what you'd end up on, whatever.
How big were the
Um,
fields? Were they similar
that one was
sized
just
events?
128.
120. So this one was
Yep.
128 players. What was the skill mix? Like where were you in the pack? Were you middle of the pack, top 10%,
About
top
right in the middle, yeah, because
Wow.
I could look back, but I'm pretty sure they said it was like right around 30 players that were over 800 Fargo. And then I think between 750 and 800, there was like another around 50.
Shoot.
So, and I'm just shy of 750. So, yeah, I was probably like below the center of the pack, I think.
That's brutal, man. How tough
Yeah,
is
it's
that?
tricky. Yeah.
How much have things changed? So, okay. Um,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, I was yeah, that tournament, I mean, I started off not the best. I mean, but I got a really, fortunate draw, I guess, first. The guy was maybe like a Fargo 550 or 560, but it was one of those weird sets where like I got up like 5-0, and then I'm not even kidding you. He had to hit the cue ball 4 times to get his 4 games following that, and but it's just like one of those weird things where you're like,
So
wait a
like
minute,
a
the guy
short racks, a 9 ball break,
literally, yeah, like
yeah.
he broke in a 9, broke and hung a 2-9, and then like I missed a kind of a tough 9 and rattled it, and then on another game I tried to play safe, and it didn't leave a wired combo, but enough where like if I didn't fully hook him, like it just lined up good, where he can
You,
kind of make
you
a
know what
quick
I'm
combo, but
you know what I'm picturing is like once in a while you have a spot where like you've got the you're playing safe, and let's just say you're playing safe on the six, and the six is on one end rail and the nine's on the opposite end rail. And so your table length on the six ball, and you're like, well, I'll just bank it up, I'll bank it end rail to end rail and leave table length, and maybe I can get it with the 8 ball. And then you look at the 9 ball and you're like, I mean, I know I'm putting the six near the nine, but the
you're
nine's
like,
2 feet
nah.
from the pocket on a four
Yeah.
inch hole. Like, it's probably going to be okay. And so you bank it up table, and it like caroms off the 7 ball slightly and rolls up and like lays against the nine, where it's like, you're just like, it's possible, but like, anyway, and
Yeah.
then when it happens back to back, it's brutal, man.
Yep,
Anyway,
yep. And then yeah, so I mean I got through that match, just kind of stumbled along and struggled. And then I had to play I had to play Tyler Steyer next. And I didn't I wasn't coming through the ball very well, to be honest, but I was like making it work in the beginning of the set, and he
yeah.
wasn't neither of us were really breaking perfect, so it was a lot of moving game, but I was like out moving him, and then not saying I was out shooting him, I just like I beat him to the shot in a lot of the games, and I ended up getting up like 6-2, and then I broke dry. He ended up running out and then breaking and running two. And then when it was 6-5, I had another chance. He kind of, I wouldn't say he died. It was a tough shot. He missed a 7 ball and left me like a pretty routine 3 ball out. And I like it was one of the like on the 8 ball. I should have just either chosen to like punch 2 rails around the 9, or just like do straight top and kind of leave a longer. And I tried to get like kind of cute, used a little spin and just twisted the eight right into the rail. It was stupid, but you know, my own mistake, right? So
Ouch. And what the score when you missed that eight ball was what?
that would have been put me up 7-5 breaking,
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
nine. Yeah, and then so then from there I got one other opportunity, but you know, he honestly played a really good set.
Yeah,
Aside,
he
you know,
it
once he
sounds
was
like he
back. He started breaking really well, and he was just getting it was almost like hard to believe that I even got another shot, like how good he was breaking. It was like it's kind of like when you're playing somebody bar table Magic Rack, and every time they have the same look on the one, you like don't really want to watch the rest of the set. That's how it kind of felt playing him, but and he's
yeah, yeah.
obviously a great player, you know. He's hard to
Eh,
beat, so
Yeah, he has put in a lot of work. And it is I know what you mean. It's that's a big opportunity because he's a tough player right now. He's playing full time and he's hitting them good. And I know on paper he's got the best of it against you, but like going up 7-5, obviously, but when you miss that eight ball, and it's kind of tough. And then of course it's not even like, and then he outplayed you from there. It's just he didn't even let you shoot from there hardly. So, all right.
yeah.
So what was I going to ask? I was going to ask something about this. When you say sometimes you have trouble getting through the ball. So like one thing I've noticed is when I'm nervous, and it's not just me. For a lot of players, not just nerves, but even just like uncomfortable. Like there's a difference. There's a spectrum from like so scared and terrified and like panicky. But like even when you're just a little uncomfortable, it's like the first thing that goes is that like little pop in your stroke where you add a little stank to every
Yep.
swing, right? And when you're shooting shots like an example would be like if you're trying to shoot a shot where you're kind of flat on the ball and you're trying to float back a foot, and then when you're playing good, you just kind of pop it and just kind of it reacts and dribbles back. But when you're kind of like lackluster and you kind of drift through the swing a little bit and you end up like sticking or rocking back instead of dribbling back, like you just kind of lack that little pop. So
Right.
for me that happens when I'm a little bit uncomfortable. What do you, or is it just like some days it's hard to find the right swing, or I mean, is it a little bit?
No, I think there's a mix of that. I think definitely yeah, I don't really know if we describe it as nerves because it probably is a bit of nerves, but not nerves like to the point where you're like shaking and can't hold it together, or like you really care about the outcome at the end of the day because you're trying to win, but it doesn't really affect your life, you know? It's more so, like you said, like a discomfort, like it's almost like a foreign experience again because, you know, when I used to play pool all the time, I mean, I would still run into that, but it was like in like sets that I really wanted to win, and I felt like, ooh, I got a chance against a really good player. You know, it's a little bit more like excitement rather than like kind of fear or nerves or discomfort. But nowadays, that's kind of what I feel because I'm never in the heat of battle, as you know, like with where we're living, we don't really compete at pool ever, you know,
At
and
that level, yeah, not at
like
the
yeah, and
highest
it's like even
levels.
when you do compete, I mean, yeah, it's not the same. You're competing against guys that usually have a huge edge on, so they're really not like putting heat on you. Or if you
I
are
want to
playing the
I want
guys,
to
then
come
go ahead.
back to that point in more detail, but I want to keep moving first. What I
Sure.
will say is like I think not even nerves. I won't even say nerves, but when I feel like a lack of when my confidence is not when I'm not bubbling with confidence for whatever reason. It could be I'm nervous. It could be I'm just not feeling good. Like I'm just a little bit off and my confidence isn't there, or if the layout's a little tough, or if I'm a little sharked by the pockets or by my opponent. Like there's a number of things where I don't have to be snake bit, but even just when I'm not feeling the most confident and flowing, that it's just funny how that acceleration can go away so easily. Um,
Right.
so so then you lose to Tyler. That's a real big downer because like after having a chance to win that set, or kind of or position
Yeah.
yourself to have a chance to win the set, to kind of miss that opportunity and then end up on the B side against good players, that's kind of discouraging.
Yeah, because in those now too, like you play down to like 128 to get to a, you know, just a single elimination redraw, and then it's like then you're in the money, which the money is not a big deal,
What
but
was it?
it's
The
just
final 32 or six, or how
in
how
that one it
was
would have been the final 32. So if had I beat him, I would have had to play that I'm gonna butcher the name, but it's the Poland guy, the Oliver
Oliver
Swanowski or
Suzdaki or
whatever you pronounce it. Yeah.
Nolzaki.
And I
Yeah,
mean, it's like not that that would have. I mean, that guy's. I watched him play Tyler. He just like steamrolled him. You know, like the guys. They're all good. They're when you have that many 800 plus Fargos, like you just watch perfect set after perfect set.
wow.
But yeah. So no, it's just fun to get out and compete and try it, right? But
So what
yeah.
happened on the
No.
B side, real
Then
quick?
then I lost to Max Eberly, and
Oh
that
yeah,
one
I saw
I
that. That's
just did
right.
not play a good set. I'll admit it, I dogged it like four times. You know, it was one of those where like once you're kind of like once you dog it twice early in the set and you're down like 5-1 or 6-1, then you get an opportunity, and it's not like a hung six ball opportunity. It's like you got to like fight to win the one ball just so then you can like get to a safety battle on the six ball. And that shouldn't change anything, but like you know how that feels near that spot. It's like, man, it's hard to see any light like at that point, you know.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
shouldn't feel that way, but I
No,
just,
no, no.
you
It's
know.
real. It's real. It's real. So that's
Yeah.
tough, man. I mean, so in the end, I mean, those are both real strong players, of course. And then
Yeah.
tell me the second event. I know a little bit because I know the second event. Was it the same field size, the WNT, and the one? Is that the one
Uh,
that Shane won?
yeah, yep, some guy from South Dakota won it. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, he won. I think that was it would have been 256 was I don't think it was a full field though. I think they were missing 15 or so players, maybe
And what was
maybe
the
up to
strength of
20.
that field? Was it similar or was it?
Well, yeah, all the players from the other one were there plus more guys came, you know.
Gosh,
But yeah, it's just tough, man.
I know we've talked about it before, but it's so weird for you to be in the middle of the field where like 15 years ago you would have been like top 10%, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah, and I've
something.
actually done some more thinking about that because I've paid attention to less like the top 30 guys, but the next, piece down. And it's like, yes, I'm like in the middle or below the middle Fargo rate, and based on the fact that I'm not playing. But if I put together like a full schedule for a year and a half, like obviously I'm not gonna say my Fargo rate's gonna like significantly change, but I'm gonna be playing where a lot of those guys are around like the 780 speed. I
Right.
maybe it's 10 points less, maybe it's 10 points. It's hard to say exactly, but I don't know.
I
It's
get
just
it, man.
I don't really feel like I'm in the middle of the pack. I feel like I'm just not in the top 20 to 25%.
Well,
I
you
think I'm
feel
more in
like
like the 30,
you feel like
35.
you feel like you're 20th percentile off your game a little bit, and then so you're in the middle of the pack based on
Yeah, yeah.
effectively.
Nowadays,
Effectively,
I
you're
feel like with how like off I do play nowadays, I definitely feel like you said, I'm closer, but I know where I can play if I'm actually putting the time and
so the one thing I want to interject because I just won't remember to bring this up later because we're going to get back to your second tournament. So let me interject a thought that I've been having. I've been calling this the no parallel universe theory, which there are there are a lot of people. So, okay, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine from St. Louis, Missouri. He's a student of mine. He came and worked with me, and I've gotten to be friends with him. And he was talking about going and playing the Texas Open, but he wasn't sure because he hasn't been competing a lot and he hasn't been able to compete a lot lately. And so he didn't know if he wanted to show up and play kind of a poor, like he didn't know if he would be at his best. And and it's interesting enough. This is almost like 2 points I wanted to make coming together. So I'm actually making killing two birds with one stone here. I
okay.
just at 11:30 had a conversation with a guy that reached out to me about training pool, and he was talking about how there's not a lot of good players that he can match up with, and he's got some friends that play way under him, but that's not good for his game. And he's playing around 600 speed, and he's trying to get better, and and I said, "Hey man, I can get you a match with a guy who's a little tougher, like 620, 625, and he'll play you friendly, like you can play a race to 11 for 50 or $100, which is what the guy already said he was comfortable betting. 50 or $100 is no problem. Like we're not talking a big money game,
Right.
but I'm like, but we could put it on the stream. I could do the commentary. Like that would be something where, you could play a race to 11 for 100 and I could do commentary and you could, if nothing else, you'd get, the lessons and the feedback of me doing the commentary and you seeing kind of what happens and where things struggle. And he had also just had a conversation talking about how he played better against better players and he usually rolls his game up and all this. And as soon as I said that, he was like, I'm not ready for that. And I'm like, well, why are we even talking about coaching pool then? Like, why don't you go get ready to start your journey and then tell me when you're
Yeah.
ready? Because I was mad. And so the two things I'd say is you got to make the fire before you get the smoke. You don't get ready in your basement and then get comfortable to handle adversity and then go out and it's not hard and challenging and scary. You go out and do hard and challenging and scary and come up short, and then that gives you a couple things focus and direction, which I'm going to table that for a minute because I've got more thoughts on focus and direction to share later. But I was upset. And the other thing coming back to the second point I was trying to make is you don't get the smoke until you make the fire. And too many players, God damn it, too many players want the smoke before they make the fire. And that's not how it's they don't understand the cause and effect. You
Right.
have to you have so and the second part, the first point I wanted to make was the parallel universe theory. What could be in another world doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So the player, everybody listening, the player that you could be if you hadn't had kids, the player you could have been if you'd quit, if you hadn't quit playing all those years, the player you could have been if you'd gotten coaching earlier, the player you could be if you had more time to compete more often, the player you could be if you had a month or two to spar and get ready. Take a good look at that and now crumple it up and throw it away because it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Right,
exist.
right.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's
it's
not reality.
mythical. I'm not saying this to
Yeah.
you. I'm saying it to the crowd. Like, so this guy, my buddy that was talking about not going to the Texas Open, it's like that's because you're comparing who you are and where you are now to this player that you imagined you could be in a different universe. And you're like, well, since I'm not that fictional person that I wish I could have been, this feels kind of insignificant and stupid because it's not as good as it ought to be because I could have been a champion. And it's like,
Right.
I don't really care about a parallel universe. Like, and everybody, and you know this, everybody has a story about the player they could be. And
Hmm.
so if what we wanted to do is instead, how about this? Instead of having a pool tournament where we actually play pool and run balls, why don't we get all the pool players together and we'll sit around and talk about how good we could have played if we played our cards differently. And then whoever's got the best story, we just give them the trophy. How about that? Like, okay, so
Yeah.
in the end, I told them, I'm like, guys, I don't care. But this is actually a thing. It's like one of the quickest ways to demotivate yourself and derail yourself is to compare yourself to a parallel universe version of yourself and then decide that anything less than that is pointless because it's not as good as it could have been in some other universe. So therefore, because the truth is you have one life to live, man. This is it. This is reality, and you get one. So you can either go do it or you can diminish what you're doing and say it doesn't matter because it's not as good as it could have been in a different universe. So therefore, I could just sit around and, watch YouTube pool players that actually are out in the ring doing it, eat Cheetos. Like it's not okay, guys. It's not okay. So quit using the parallel universe as an excuse to dismiss being the best version of yourself you actually can be in this real universe. That's what I want to say. So, what are your thoughts? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, on that note, give me a second. I got to withdraw my entry to the U.S. Open. I just feel like I
Ah,
got no chance to. Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. It's hard because I think we all do that to a different level in well in all areas of life, but specifically in pool when I remember not that I'm like calling out Jimmy for this, but I remember like when was kind of coming up and playing a lot of pool, I would ask him sometimes why he didn't want to play, and he just was like, "Yeah, it's not really fun because he's like, I can't play the level that I know that I can play, so it's like it gets really discouraging to hit balls, and he would struggle with finding joy in hitting balls again because he would like he would miss balls that he should never miss or play terrible position. You lost cue ball, and I I mean I understood it from afar, but I never got to experience it until like now I do where there's a lot of like routine outs where I'm like, yeah, like I can't lose the cue ball here. Like I know too much about this to let this happen. And then lo and behold, my cue ball fall like 3 feet short, and I'm like I absolutely know not to decelerate through the shot, and instead of you relying on spin, you're supposed to like force like use more center ball, and that way you have more control and the speed of the cue ball and the momentum and everything. And I don't know, it's just like when you start to feel that, you see how players can kind of like go down this downward spiral mentally, and then start comparing that to that alternate universe like you were saying.
100%. And you know what's funny is you bring something up, and my student, I don't think he's going to be my student. The guy I had a talk with at 11:30, I think I was pretty stubborn and not confrontational, but I mean, it's hard. I have some things I really strongly believe. And so one conversation, so I'm just kind of this is just interesting. This is what I just talked about with the guy. He was talking about how he could maybe get better on his own, just kind of not much. He agreed, not much. He was talking about needing direction and coaching, but he was saying that he still thinks he can get better, just kind of practicing what he already knows. And I was like, man, listen, I don't mean to disagree. Like you guys, if you anybody hasn't seen it, if you go to my YouTube channel, MN Pool Boot Camp on YouTube, MN for Minnesota, MN Pool Boot Camp, I did something called Why Good Players Don't Get Great. The video's less than a year old. I mean, I don't make that many videos. And I basically show why that's not the case. But there's also a few assumptions that people make when it comes to I'm just gonna and one faulty assumption is people see progress as linear upward mobility. They just assume that your pool game will just improve over time because you'll put in table time and practice and effort, and therefore it will just keep getting better. And
Yeah.
you're old enough now to know, and you're experienced enough to know that is not the case. There are things over time that might get worse. You might look at it and say, I used to be better than that at that than I am today. Or God, that used to come easier. And when you're a beginner, you pretty much get better and better because you're so bad, there's nowhere to go but up. But the better you get, it's possible that you can actually slip back in some areas and that things that you used to be good at or used to be comfortable with, you might start getting uncomfortable with them or not as confident with them.
Yep.
Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention that I mentioned to the guy is that when it comes to Fargo rate, something that I don't know, man. There's just things I think. I mean, this is what I do full time. I think about this and train this, so I'm living in this world. So I understand that not everybody has taught this. Fargo is all about relative skill, and so if somebody's a 600 Fargo, that means that they win 50% of the games against a 700. Well, if everybody else in the world tomorrow got 20% better, just everybody else but you got 20% better, your Fargo would drop 20 points or whatever it is because you haven't gotten better. And Fargo is just a relative comparison as to where you are against the people you're playing. So if
Yeah.
everybody but you is getting better, then of course you could say, well, then their Fargos will go up and then my win rate against them will be blah, blah. But like, if that would be the case, so this is where I'm not like a statistician or a high level mathematician. It's interesting to think about because if everybody else got better, maybe it's the case that everybody else's Fargo rate goes up and then theirs stays the same. But if everybody's Fargo rate magically, or if everybody got magically 20% better but you, then everybody else is relatively the same against everyone else. So everyone else's Fargo rate stays the same and yours would fall. So my point is that this whole idea about being able to increase your Fargo rate, it's like you don't realize that if you're at 600, if everybody else is improving, then you have to improve just to maintain. And that's my point. You have to improve to maintain these days because pool is getting
Yeah.
better. Pool is right. Would you agree with that? Pool is getting better.
It is, yeah. And I mean, we won't go deep into Fargo rate anyways, but like I mean,
Yeah.
I see like how inaccurate it is in a lot of ways, but yeah, I don't know. Like one thing that's tricky with it too is that there's no like point of like refresh, you know? So like once your robustness is high enough, it's like you're kind of stuck no matter what you do, unless you literally, become the best player in the world or you start not being able to run a single rack. You're not really going to change enough to for people to understand like the true place of where you're at, if that makes
So,
sense.
well, I talk about yeah, we don't want to get into Fargo rate, but I will
Yeah, yeah,
say that I joke about how it's like looking at starlight because when you look at starlight, we're actually seeing the light from thousands of years ago. We're not seeing where the stars are today, and
yeah,
and because it takes so long to travel to our planet, and a little bit with Fargo rate, especially for people that have robustness and years of the system. You're not necessarily getting but it's not that's not a flaw in Fargo rate. That's a flaw in how people try to use Fargo rate. So
right.
Fargo rate never claimed that it could tell real time how good somebody's hitting the ball. That was never a claim they made. That's just what other people wanted to do. So I think
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
them problem. But
right.
anyway, my to wrap this up, there are no parallel universes. You don't get fire before you smoke before you make the fire. And then in terms of improvement, you can't just do the same thing you've always done and thinking more time is going to get you better because other people you have to not just get you're competing against other people that are training and practicing and studying and learning and competing, number one, and number two, there's areas of your game that might get worse. It's not a one way, it's not a guarantee that you're always going to be as good at everything as you got and then you're just going to keep adding to it. That's a faulty model, and faulty models get people stuck, and that's why I talk about it, because if you have the wrong model of how things work, then your solution might work if you lived in a world where that model was correct. But if that's not how learning works and that's not how growth works, then that model doesn't serve you. And one of the reasons I coach pool is because how it's like I'm here to help people progress their game. And when they don't even have an understanding of where they're at and how growth works and where they need to improve, then they're not going to make much progress just by chopping wood. Okay,
Yeah,
so the reason I got into all that, the no parallel universe thing, was because ultimately you were talking about your second tournament and the player you could be if you'd been playing full time. And I agree, it's not that you're wrong, that you could be a different player if you played full time. But we also have to talk about the reality we have, which is in the reality we have, you're
for
middle of the
sure.
pack in that field.
Yeah, no, for sure. So the reality too is like, and I've made peace with this. It's just I will say it is a struggle at times because like there's a lot of sets I turn in where I feel like the way that I played as far as execution is somewhere between like a 7 and a 720, if you want to put that for skill level. And it's definitely disappointing because like I'll do stuff that I'm like, I never used to struggle with this, and it's not living the past. It's just like frustration in real time of like, I should be able to get out here. Like I should be able to get, like I always used to get out here. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough when you're up against a bunch of people that are fighting and they want it really bad too. That's the other tricky part in
So
those events, right?
yeah, let's keep moving through results, and then we'll come back to what your takeaways
Okay.
are and thoughts about that motivation and stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the
So you just
second
want to know how
tournament
this.
you played, was that the one you played Johnny Archer first round?
Yep. Yeah.
The
So I drew him first
Scorpion?
round. What's that? Yeah, the
The
Scorpion. There you
Scorpion?
go. Yeah. So I
So
didn't
that
play
one's on YouTube. And by the way, I was surprised by two things. One, I was surprised at a couple times that you guys played offense. And I was also surprised early on a couple times you played defense. So there was a couple spots early where you played safe instead of taking on a long thin cut or something that was a little wild. And then later in the set, I was surprised that you went for that jacked up shot from jacked up out of the jaws of the pocket, spearing it with low outside or whatever it was. And
Oh
then
yeah.
and
Yeah, that one.
I was also surprised that he went for that long combo. Do you remember that combo he shot?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And so I was surprised by some of the offense and defense decisions. And I was also surprised by how well he shot. Like, he shot straight. Remember the eight ball that you left him down the rail? Where
Yeah.
he was like he made like he and now that one new cloth this way in, don't get me wrong. But still, I mean, to hit that
Yeah.
good enough to wobble in, that's a
The guy
hell of a
still plays
shot.
pretty good, man.
Johnny still shoots pretty
Yeah,
straight,
he does
man. I'll
shoot
tell
pretty
you.
straight. I'll give him that. But yeah, yeah, it's funny because well, I'll go to the result, but just because you brought up that one shot, the jacked up Spirit shot. So the thing with that shot is it looks like it's much harder than it is with but I had like the cushion there where like as long as I didn't like decelerate and like overcut it by a foot and hit into the other ball and spin, bring it around table, basically I knew that I was going to hit it either good enough to like rattle it or make it, but I knew that the cue ball was coming back to a relatively
You're going to
safe
leave
spot
them on
too.
the end rail where you have so whatever ball you're playing shape for is on the end rail. The cue ball is going to be on the same end rail. So as long as the cue ball and the second ball in rotation is on the end rail and the ball you miss is up table, he's going to have there's some backdoor equity and it's a kind of a it's a
Yeah,
two-way. It's a little two-way-ish. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
for sure. But
But
yeah,
in
so
this
no,
case, it split the wicket and you ran out like a boss. That was
yeah,
incredible.
there we go. Yeah, so I mean, I played like an okay set. I feel like there's obviously there was errors, but there was a couple things that I wish I could have not been on a 30-second shot clock and maybe executed better. But we're all dealing with the same thing there. So yeah, I was able to sneak by 9-7, which was fortunate. Probably should have been a bigger spread, but I dogged it a couple times, so that happens. Um, and then I had to play Roberto Gomez next, and he beat me 9-4, I think 9-4. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't get to five. And then what did I lose to on the?
He got his payback from the set you put him on at the Derby. Remember that
Yeah,
Derby
that's
set?
true. Yep.
Was that
Yeah, and
Hill
then
Hill that you beat him at Derby? That was a fun set,
no, I
though.
think that was 9-7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you made a jacked up shot on that set too, where you speared that ball in from jacked up off the end rail. Oh
Yeah.
man, remember that
Yeah.
shot?
Yep. Yeah, I
You know
can't
what's
make the
funny is
easy
that's not
ones,
even
man.
recorded. It's not like we've gone back and watched, but I was there railing you, and
Oh yeah.
I still feel that shot. And then that shot in the side pocket. Do you remember that shot in the side pocket on the hill to get out where you had to like cut that ball on the side and stun between the? It was awkward as hell. Anyway,
Yeah, everything was tough there, but sometimes you got to fight for him.
war stories, man, war stories. Good shooting.
Yeah, yeah, and then to get into the redraw, I lost to this guy from Spain, something or I can't think of his name, Salvador or something, or Garcia, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, he played a good set too. There was one rack that I gave away in that one where I missed again. I missed kind of a long eight ball where you had to like kind of power like punch through to get to the end rail and bring it back up to the middle of the table, and I just missed it. I hit it short and it came back two rails and kind of sat by the other corner for him. Other than that, I don't really feel like I played a bad set against the guy. He just beat me. So good player. But yeah, I don't know. Aside
Tough,
from that,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Imagine. So you didn't make the money in either tournament. And
No, no.
that's incredible because you're playing well. I mean, I know you're not playing parallel universe well, but you're playing well. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it's one of
it's
those things too, and this is not it's not a victim draw thing. It's just like when I'm playing that guy to get in, there's matches all around you, and I'm watching guys like miss two, three times a rack, and I'm like, one of these guys is making the money for the redraw, and all I'm thinking at this time, like, I pray that Hank draws one of these guys, like, because he had
yeah,
already won his way in.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's
So
just how it
here's
works, man, in
let
large
me tell you
fields.
this. I don't even have time to talk about my tournament. I played a tournament in Iowa last month, and I'll just say in terms of one pocket. Okay, I actually got a funny one-liner too, but in terms of one pocket, the top players in the one pocket were Shane, Roberto Gomez, and Devin Petit. Those were like the three best one pocket players in the field. I drew Shane on the winner's side. Roberto drew Devin on the winner's side and lost to Devin. And I played Roberto on the loser's side.
Yeah, just like right into the buzzsaw,
I
man.
mean,
It's
like it's
brutal.
trust me, there were some other good players there, but like it didn't have to be the Shane Roberto 1-2 punch, you know. Now
Yeah.
the cool part was in between. I actually won a couple on the B side. I played a good player on the live stream and played a pretty solid set 1-3-0 where it was pretty smooth, man. It was a pretty smooth set I played, and I felt comfortable and in control and good decision making, good execution. I feel like I managed the entire set really well, and so I did get the privilege of turning a really nice set on the live stream to win against a good player 3-0. So that felt good. And then I played this guy that was an old timer, and he was pushing 80. And I found out that he used to play exhibitions with Mosconi like in the late 60s.
Oh, funny.
And so I was like, that's super cool. So like, it's just so weird at this point. It's such a generation thing. And so anyway, after I ended up beating him, I said to him, I said, hey, I got a question. I've always wanted to ask. I've never had the opportunity. You've seen Mosconi play, and now you've seen me play. And I'm just curious, like,
Who's
how would
better?
that have gone? So
That's funny.
it was pretty funny. So anyway, my point
Yeah.
of bringing up that story though was just talking about like how you can get railed with the draw pretty tough, and especially when there's seeded tournaments and stuff. It can be the draw, man, is just gaffy. You can
Yeah.
get good draws where you make deep runs in tournaments and good players beat each other out, and you end up playing the guy that upset the guy, and and then you
Oh,
can just get
totally.
one
Yeah.
two punched.
Well, it's like I mean, just because we both know him and he lists that, it's like Ed Bregu, right? Like I watched a lot of his sets, and man, that guy's hitting the balls good, dude. It's like
How did he
it's cool to
finish? What was
watch.
he did pretty well, and what were his just real quick? How
Yeah,
deep did
so
he
he
get?
got the one round into the money, or like the second. So I think he made the final 16 in Fort Lauderdale. He beat FSR when he got into the redraw. He beat him Hill. Like
Wow,
I
yeah,
think he
I
beat
think
him
I saw
11
that.
10,
Yeah,
and then he turned around and drew him like first or second round in the Florida Open, and lost like either Hill or like 9-7. And
jeepers.
again, it's like but he's like, the guy's playing good sets, man. Like he'll be down like 5-0, 6-0, and then just like claw his way back, run out from everywhere, and then get like a funny kiss in the break or whatever. But it's just such a goofy game, man. It's like you just see that at the highest level, where with like powerful players like them, where they're running a lot of racks. It's weird to watch, really. So
So you beat Johnny, you lost to Roberto, and then on the B side you ran into that guy from Spain. That's what you
yeah,
said.
like again, I might be butchering the name, but I think it was like Salvador Garcia or something.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's talk about takeaways. So I know
Yeah,
you had some things about motivation or desire,
sure, sure.
but I also have some specific questions about like table conditions and stuff, and pocket
Yeah.
size, and just kind of
So
like yeah.
so this isn't a yeah, so at that one there's at the Florida Open being a major, it was nice because they did have like every table plays really good. They play they're all 4-inch pockets, new cloth. It was different though because if you're considering like the table at Slate, like the rails play a little faster there. These were like it's brand new cloth, but the rails they don't play dead, they just play slow. Like
Is
you
it because this cloth is new and the topspin's checking the speed, or is it actually the rails are
It's
different?
no, the it's like because even when you're not like running it, when you're just like rolling into the like a ball's just like rolling into the rail, it just comes off. It's weird. It comes off slower. It's
Like
like
spongy a
a
little?
little bit. Yeah, it's hard to explain. Like you just had to, I don't know. It's like it's really hard to explain. You almost have to experience it.
But then the balls roll fast on the new claw. So it's
A
not, they
little
don't
bit
play.
faster, yeah.
So if you think that the table plays slow and you try to hit it like it's a slow table, then the cue ball rolls too far on the new cloth. But if you play it like it's fast and it dies on the rail, so you have to like ping it off the rail, but then budget for the speed.
Yeah.
It's weird. It just changes the way you start. It adds a variable that you have to think about on every shot. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then as you know, like on the those TV tables, for me at least, I struggle to adjust there because the balls already roll faster on the cloth just from being in the heat, but then the rails play about the same. So like it's like when you leave yourself, over a ball and it's a super thin cut, it's like it feels like it's an impossible shot because I mean, you can't really power through it to like hold, you know what I mean? Like you have to slow roll it, but then, or not like slow roll, but if you have like a little less than a 45-degree cut and you're cutting into the corner,
You have to
it's
finesse
like
it. Yeah.
you kind of have to hit it hard because you got to come off the rail, but then once you start coming back down table, it's like the cloth rolls so fast that everything's really touchy. So if you don't have a very like good, I don't know, if it's like you have to have the right stroke. It has to be conducive to the conditions. You have to have really good tempo, which you should anyways at that high level. But if you're somebody who kind of like pokes at the ball more, has a faster acceleration, quicker and shorter, you're going to struggle on those tables a lot. But
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I know we didn't have a talk, but we messaged a little bit. You were talking about, and what that means is that a lot of people don't understand how quickly 2 to 6 inches of cue ball travel here and there can really affect, the angle you get on this shot and how bad your shape is on the next shot, or if you're
right.
over a ball or if you're on the rail, and it's like all of a sudden it's like and I've joked about this. I've actually not joked about it. There's an experiment. Anybody that's listening, try this. Next time, try running a few 6 ball runs in order where after every shot, you move the cue ball a handspan in a worse direction. Just 6 inches after every shot. See if you can run 6 balls. It's gaffy how hard the game gets when you're a little bit off and then it gets a little bit more off and then a little bit more off. And it's just what you
Yeah,
told me in text message was when you're used to being in line and having routine outs be routine, next thing you know, you're off a little bit on your speed. The cloth is playing different, the rails are playing different, and all of a sudden, you end up having to make like not difficult, not shots you'd bet against, but everything's off angle, everything's over a ball, everything's near jacked up off a rail now, everything's a little bit more awkward to the side or a little bit thinner than you meant to be, and it's just it's like really amazing how a few inches, a couple times a rack can really make
a huge
it makes it
difference.
so it's
Yeah.
like you have to make a lot. It's like every rack you're wobbling through with recovery shots. You're not just like staying in line and keeping it routine.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that if there's one thing I could say that maybe people don't pick up on is they would say that and it'll sound like complaining. They'll be like, "Well, you can't hack it and you can't, and that's fine too." But what they don't realize is that even guys like Jason Shaw and Filler, like when you watch their sets on equipment like that, you're like you see right away as like a good player, like, well, they're out of line there, but their execution, their shot making is so good that it never really looks like they're that far to line. But like for an average, not an average, an above average player that usually is a run out player, when they lose the control of their cue ball, it's like the game gets infinitely harder because they never really had to rely solely on their like powerful execution. They just never got out of line because they've dialed their cue ball so
Yeah, so
well,
the percentages. So like for Shaw, let's just say for you, okay, if you're playing on a table where you can stay in line, you run out where you have a series of 95% shots. But then
Right.
on the U on those new cloth tables, on the weird rails, on a stream, all of a sudden you're offline, and the shots you end up with 2 or 3 shots that are like 80%, where or 80 or 90%. But 80% three times, 80% times 80% is 64 times 80% again, you're 50-50. If you have 3 80% shots, you're like 50-50 to dog one of them. And then it affects your confidence too, and you know
Of
how you're
course, yeah.
feeling. So it's like, but the bottom line is that if you're fighting your cue ball and you get offline a couple times, then if you get 80% shots 3 times a rack, 3 racks in a row, then even if you run out 2 out of those 3, making awkward recovery shots and digging it back out, 1 out of 3 you dog it. But meanwhile, if you're playing a guy like Shaw, when he gets a little funny, he goes from 95 to like 92. And it's like
Right.
he could still make those recovery shots and he's at just a high enough clip to where he runs out 3 out of 3, you run out 2 out of 3. Well, now he's ahead 4-2 on the score. And it's like the difference is if you were playing on softer conditions, and I don't even mean soft, I just mean not as trappy, you might have run out your 3 routine racks and be 3-3. So the same way that playing him on a bar table, he's still the favorite. But if you're playing him on the
Yeah.
bar table, you're both and you both get 3 chances to run out. Odds are you're going to be 3-3. So it's almost like the tighter pockets favor the better player, and those weird conditions where you're always going to be a little off angle and having to really rely on your striking and confidence. Um, it puts heat on your game, and you're just not you don't strike the way Filler strikes or the way the 800 strike, and it really exposes the gap between a top U.S. player and a top international player.
100%. Yep. Yeah, so then the other thing I'll say is it's interesting. So they have their four stream tables for their TV arena tables, whatever it is. And I get why they do it this way because they're running a show. But it's just funny. It's like the three Matchroom major tournaments that I've went to, every single time I've been put on one of those in the first round, and then it's like when you're dealing with the shot clock, like I'm not like a fast player. I wouldn't say I'm the slowest player, even though maybe some people disagree, but like I feel like I keep like a decent pace. It's just not like 30-second pace, because you get 30 seconds and what happens is they start the clock the second that all balls come to a rest. Well, if you think about it, if a guy gets down on a table and he shoots like kind of like a basically like a stun run through where he's poking through like 2-3 inches and he rattles the ball and it kicks off to the left like 3 inches. Well, they restart the clock. So by the time you actually get up to the table, you really only have like 26 seconds, 25. And then now you're just starting to like assess what it looks like. By the time you walk around the table, chalk your cue and get back to the shot, you're already at like 15. So then literally by the time you get down on the ball, you hear the ref say 10, and now you're like, well, now I'm kind of in panic mode. So it's like, do I use my timeout now or is this not worth it? And it probably doesn't affect players who are like obviously extremely fast, but it for me, I think that that's just a little bit too light for nine ball, especially on tough equipment. It'd be one
Yeah.
thing if it was bar table pool because it's a lot easier to walk around the table and make your decisions, whatever. But a lot of these are like not easy decisions, in tight games, tight
In my
matches. But
coaching group, I just did a video where I talked about pace of play and how pace of play changes based on game type, bar table versus big table, 8 ball versus 9 ball, and different factors. And pocket size plays a big role. Yeah, what's funny to me? Um, I agree. Like if I could wave a wand, I think that a 40-second shot clock or a 45-second shot clock would be really nice.
yeah,
Or some kind of chess clock where instead of one extension rack, if you had a 30-second clock, but then you each had like a 10-minute time bank where it's like how like really a 10-minute time bank where you go your 30 seconds and then instead of calling 10 seconds, they just let you shoot and they just run your clock down from, your clock starts. When you run out of 30
yeah,
seconds, it's like how much worse would it be to give each player a 10-minute time bank? I mean,
right.
players can take breaks and do other stuff anyway. But anyway, I think that they like it though because I think that they actually like it because it's almost like it's a like suppose speed pool is popular because it's kind of a carny thing and entertaining. It's almost
Yeah,
like people like the audience likes to see top players squirm and time pressure and make blunders. And so
yep,
I feel like it's actually there to mess with people almost. It's like
yeah.
because
So
the reason why I'm saying this, just to phrase it clearly, if the simple problem was we want to keep tournament matches on time, there's ways to run tournament matches on time that don't involve putting players in those situations. So there's got to be delivered for entertainment. Yeah.
right, and I'm actually okay with it because I feel like the 30-second shot clock, even though it's short, it's something that I could definitely adjust to quite quickly if it was like more consistent, more than for me, more than 4 or 5 matches a year. But it is what it is. It's just how it works. The thing that got me though is that it's like so I was telling you this before a little bit, and then we decided to just kind of save it for this the talk. But so like when like kind of watching these stream matches, and then I'm seeing these other top players on the outside, and they're taking like a minute and a half a shot on
Because
like
there's only the shot clocks only on the stream matches.
yeah, and it's like I was telling you kind of, or I was kind of getting into this where like David Elcady was playing a Hill set against some guy from I don't know like I don't know probably like a Qatar or something like that, like Arab Emirates thing or whatever, and he it's a Hill game and he's down on this four ball that's like it's just kind of a routine cut and then you come like two rails up to the center of the table and the guy, I mean, he literally took like 2 or 3 minutes on the shot and he got down on it a bunch of times. And I'm like, must be nice, bro. Like, it must be nice to just be able to look at this 10 times before you have to get on the ball because there's no pressure there, really. It's like you just go whenever you're ready. And he didn't end up getting out anyways. Like, I'm like, you have like too much time probably where you overthink it. But, but but then it's like you realize that it is all for a show. And so when I had beat Johnny and I had to wait for a Roberto match. I think at that time I had to play him at like 2:45 p.m. there or 2:30 something like that. So I got there about a half hour prior to get back to the practice tables. I figured I'll just hit a couple racks, hop in the rotation. And then all of a sudden like Roberto and I are both back there. He's on the table next to me and he's like, man, he goes, I don't think we're gonna play till 6. And we look at and I was just like, what do you mean? He goes, look at the score, and it was like 3-2 on the TV table, and I was like, that's not even possible, you know. So then I walk over there, and it's that like that Andy Goldstein or whatever, the guy that's like kind of a TV presenter celebrity from overseas.
Okay.
Well, it's the one match on the TV table is that they don't use the shot clock. And I'm like, oh, so you're gonna play favorite because it's your guy. And I'm like, this is brutal, man. I'm like, then put this on a side table, you know, like because you're screwing up the whole tournament time frame match now. So we didn't even get to start our match for like probably 30 to 40 minutes after it should have because it was the one time the entire tournament that you didn't use the shot clock in the TV arena. And I'm just like, what a what a thing, man. It's just kind of funny, you know. It's
Yeah, you know
I
what it
get it
reminds
that
me of? This is, I don't want to go down there. I'm sure you've heard about the thing at the WSOP where they implemented a shot clock on the poker mid-tournament, and
oh yes, yep,
it made
yep.
a huge scandal because like it affects the amateurs more than it affects the top players, and it's like people are playing for millions of dollars, and all of a sudden
Right.
they're making 5 minute decisions all tournament, and all of a sudden they got, and it was a short clock too. Like they had like a it was like a 15-second clock, which when you're making $1 million decisions, it was like it went from like no clock to like hyperbolic.
Yeah, really brutal. Yeah, yeah. It's
So
just
anyway,
it's kind of
it's kind of
crazy,
like that.
but
It's just like a little curveball. Well, here's
yeah.
something that comes to mind, and I want to find out how you adjust to it. Um, so I've noticed something, and it's people. I don't know that people can really understand. Uh, they can intellectually, but they can't emotionally. Things affect how you feel.
Yep.
Like think about, the old example I've always used is if you're, this is not my example. This is Titanic Thompson, who used to get people to bet more than they were comfortable with, and that it would affect their performance. And the deal was, he said, if there's a balance beam a foot off the ground, anybody can run across it. If you put it 50 feet in the air, nobody can walk across it. It's the same balance beam, but it's not the same. It changes how you feel dramatically. You feel
Right.
dramatically different because you're fighting for your life, and it changes how you feel, and it changes how you start thinking and controlling. And it's not the same. And there's a few things that people don't understand. And one is pocket size. There's a lot of people listening to this that have never played on those pocket sizes. And it changes how you feel. Like I know that when I play on my home table, which has 4.5 inch holes with worn cloth, probably plays close to 4 1/4, and it just I feel comfortable. But then if I go to slate on the 4 inch pockets, all of a sudden, even though I'm setting up the same and I'm swinging the same, I feel more wobbly. Like what felt comfortable, relaxed, and accurate, now I feel like I'm wobbling and inaccurate because the level of precision demanded is so much that it puts so much heat on you that there's like little wobbles and flaws that you don't even notice because it's good enough, and all of a sudden you don't, instead of feeling comfortable and relaxed and straight, you feel like wobbly and tight and off. And just because the targets are so much smaller that, like, if for anybody that questions this, go to your table, put your cue ball on the spot, and set up a diagonal shot straight into the corner. Shoot it 5, 10 times. See if you can feel kind of comfortable. Now, the object ball should be about halfway to the pocket. Okay, you feel comfortable? Good. Now, instead of halfway to the pocket, put it a third of the way to the pocket. And then a third of the way from the pocket, put another object ball so you have a 2 ball combo. So you're 2 feet from the object ball, and then that's 2 feet from the next object ball, and that's 2 feet from the corner. And you got to shoot a straight combo. Now, how straight does your stroke feel when you're practice stroking? Like it just feels different, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
It's
Because all the
amazing how
fears come in,
different it
right? Yeah.
feels. And
Yep.
so pocket size is one thing. And then that affects your confidence and your timing, and then and your judgment, decision making. And then when you're playing under pressure, because you're in a pro event, and then when you're playing against world class players that are threats to overpower you and destroy you and are superior to you, are better than you. That's another thing, is it's hard for people to, there's certain things that it's hard to scale. So if you're used to, I was thinking about this, certain ideas that don't scale as you move up in competition. If you're used to being better than the players around you, and you're used to having the skill edge, and you're used to being something special with pool and being a good player, you might not know this, but part of your swagger and part of your confidence and part of your execution hinges on the swagger that you have that comes from having a skill edge. And when you start playing guys where you're inferior in every way, it's it's if you derive your sense of being and your sense of game from this, all of a sudden it feels different. And then being down on the score, when you're down on the score and things aren't going your way and you're getting tough opportunities and you're not getting good chances to start with, each of these things by themselves is enough to change how you feel and perform. But when you've got tight pockets against world class players under pressure, and then add a shot clock, it is impossible for people to understand that you're not playing the same game, and it puts so much heat on your game that it's like if every shot you had to shoot was a combo from for the rest of the rack. It's like it can feel that tough, and
Yeah.
I don't know, man, it's tough out there.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of yeah, like everyone's a hero in their basement, right? On everything they're comfortable with too, and also in those TV arenas, like there's four tables that are like all together, and then it's just like wedged by like I guess a giant T, right? Of like, so you really can't, maybe you don't see the other tables, but when there's stuff going on at the other tables, like there's a lot of like audience talk too. So you have all this noise that's kind of, not that that should really affect you, but you can hear a lot in there when and then you're trying to like process your own thoughts in real time and like, what am I supposed to do? Am I running out of time? Should I do this? Should I take my extension? And yeah, it's an interesting game, man. It's a position that is not necessarily fun to be in, but you can kind of get used to it as well, I guess. It's just like you said, it's really hard for people to understand who have never been in it because it on the TV, like I was even watching Hank play last night at the Arizona thing, and I'm like watching on TV. I'm like, oh, I'm like, well, there's no way he shouldn't be out here. Like, you just shoot this here, but it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. How did this feel a week and a half ago when you were in that position on the shot clock and like you wanted to walk around and just double check where your cue ball needs to be, and then you're like, all right, this is, even though it's easy, it's still tough,
Or even just take an
Everything,
extra deep breath, just take two
yeah,
seconds to take an extra
everything,
deep breath and chalk your cue one more time. Yeah,
right. So it's
man.
just a crazy game, man. But yeah, I mean, where that goes with I don't know if this is where you're going with it, but it's like this is a lot easier said than done, but it's something that I mean, I fully understand. It's just really hard to execute because I've listened to a lot of really high end like sports psychologists on this one, and they're basically all on the same thing. It's like at the end of the day, like you're either like a champion or you're a victim. Like that, there's only two mindsets you can possibly have, and it's like it's basically every time you get up to compete, it's like, are you going to allow the victim to take over today, or are you going to have the champion mindset, like win or lose, like what's going to happen? And it's so easy, like logically, to think about it that way, but it's really difficult to execute because there is a lot of outside things that you don't like, you can't really practice for, you don't know when like this actually happened to the tournament. You don't know when the lights are going to flicker because of the storm outside, and then all of a sudden like the generator kicks on, you're like, what, like are you resetting the clock, like what's going on here? It's like, how do you practice for that, like now your mind's thrown off, and it's like, well, you don't really practice for it. It's just, you just remind yourself that your only goal is to like give it your best here and like not really care about the results, and do your best to not let the outside forces kind of interrupt you.
And so one thing that I would tell people in the spot like that, and I'm not saying it's going to make it easy. I'm not even going to say it's going to work, but just like the mindset there's some mindsets that are more likely to give you good results. And so one I like is, how would blank handle this? And blank could be one of two things. It could be an idol of yours or somebody that inspires you or somebody that you want to be like, or it could be just the version of you that you would like to become or the version of you that you would like to manifest. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be like Nick Varner. So I would be like, well, what would Nick do? And let me try to do this the way I thought Nick would do it. Or you can look at it and say, who's the player? Like, let's have a vision of who I'd like to be and how I would like to play. Like, if I could borrow bits and pieces of different people's games, like I want to strike, and maybe it's not like filler, maybe that's not your stroke, but maybe there's a player that strokes the way you stroke, that's you've always liked the way that they handle something, or maybe you like the way, you like the way Efren kicks, or you like the way, Jesus jumps, or you like the way Shane breaks, or whatever it is. And then you say, if I would love to have that break and this, and that would be, put it all together, and that's like my imaginary universe, Super Jesse. Well,
Yeah.
how would Super Jesse handle this? Because how would the player I want to be handle light flicker? Well, they would acknowledge it, laugh about it, and then get back to work. So that's what I'm going to try to do. And now, whether or not I can do it or not, but I think I'm not saying you need an alter ego, but like you almost have to have if you start thinking about how you want to respond to stuff and how you want to handle stuff, it's going to be too close to victim mode. But if you have an idea of how would the champion handle this stuff, and then just what is and I used to teach this I'm very similar. I'm just finishing this rant. It's like I used to tell my guys when I manage salespeople, I'd say there's average performers, there's below average, there's above average. There's the champions, the average crowd, and the guys that are looking for work. And so every time you have a choice, you have to ask yourself, what would the average person do, and what does a champion do? And just choose what the champion does, and that's how you have to think. So I kind of we're saying the same thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where like, I think when like we all naturally have a hunger as we're getting good at pool and other things too, but we're just talking about pool obviously. So when you're getting better at pool and you're starting to feel competitive and like almost like you're getting ahead of the herd, it's really easy to not really have to come up with a backstory or like have a like a planned route that you're going to follow because it's just you're always in competition. You're probably experiencing wins enough where you're getting the dopamine hits and everything just sort of works together until you hit your plateau or you kind of fizzle out of pool, right? But then like this is something I never really used to have to do when I was younger because pool was like a lot of my identity and it's all I really knew what to do. But now, like I said, when I go, like it's not about like trying to win money playing pool because it's a lot easier to just go make it in business, right? And it's not really about like fame, like or like a small level of, like that's not going to change my life in any way. So then it's like, well, I'm if you're still drawn to it and you're still enjoying it, like what's the real reason why you want to be here and compete? And when you get there, why do you want to play your best? Like what are you really searching for?
What
And
are
it's
you
like you
fighting
have
for?
to,
What is the purpose of this fight? Yeah.
yeah, you have to like either like dig deep and figure it out, and if you can't, it's like you have to find a way to rewrite your own story and create this narrative of why you're here. And then like I mean, it's again, it's one of those things that's a lot easier said than done, but like when you don't have that natural fire and killer instinct in it anymore, then you have to like redesign it, and that's I think that's one of the hardest things to do in pool, because it even for the top guys, like when you see them dominate for multiple years and they kind of fizzle out, it's like we were talking about Johnny Archer. It's like what story would Johnny have to tell himself at this point? Because I mean, he still hits the ball as well, but I mean, he's not even in the top like 200 or 300 in the world, probably. Like
No,
or
yeah, no
not.
chance.
Not. I mean, I've even like active guys, like semi-active guys. Like there's just so many better players out there that it's like. Well, what story are you telling yourself here? Because at one point you were the guy. Like everybody knew you as the best player in the 90s or whatever. So it's like how do you cope with that? And then how do you like now you don't have like all the outside reinforcements of like, yeah, man, you're the greatest thing ever. So like how do you you know what I mean? Like how do you redo that? Maybe you have some thoughts on that, but
Yeah, yeah, it's critical because if you don't have a reason, and if you don't have a reason for the fight, then it's like, well, what difference does it make? And we've all had sets where you just feel like kind of like when you're down to Max Everly and dogging it, and then you have a tough opportunity that's not even going to lead to a run out. It's like, what's the point of fighting this one ball in when I'm down 6-1, dogging it, and even if I make it, the six don't go. And I'm probably going to end up having to shoot a combo I'll probably miss anyway.
yeah,
like
yeah.
what's the purpose of shooting coming with the one ball right now?
Like it
And
seemed easier just to hang the ball. Like, hey,
yeah,
Max, here,
yeah,
I'm
just
like, let's save ourselves this back and forth. Is this the one you want me to leave a foot away from the pocket? Like, let's just do it
you
that
just
way.
look at him, you just pick up the cue ball and hand it to him, and be like,
Yeah.
I just can't, I can't.
And then
It's
drop
so
my cue on the tied up balls. Just to,
it's funny because I had this experience too where so I have a couple thoughts. And so one was I had an experience very similar where I was really, really, really weak. And I think I might have told this story, but it's a long time ago, maybe. I was playing a match where I was playing so weak and so weak and so weak. My mindset was so weak, Jesse. And I was playing to win the hot seat of some casino tournament on a bar table up in, whatever, northern Minnesota. And I was playing this guy. It's like a race to five. And I mean, somehow, despite playing like my C game and being totally like, I was getting chances at the bar table. And somehow I was up like 4-1. And I was so weak that at one point he broke the balls. And, uh, and after he broke the balls, he had to make a testy opener. And the table was really messed up. And the weak thoughts I'd been thinking were thoughts like, man, I wonder, I'm up 4-1. Like at some point, maybe he'll just give me something easy. or I'll have an easy chance. I have enough lead, even if I wonder if I'm far enough ahead that even if I play my C game from here, can I get across the finish line? And and I wonder how many chances I'm going to get. Maybe if I blow it a few times, I'll probably still have a cushion. And then when he was broke and he had this tough shot on a really messed up layout, I looked at the layout and it was so unpleasant. I'm like, I hope he comes with this shot because I don't even want to be at the table. I don't even want to have to figure out what to do with this rack. I hope he runs 6 balls and hooks himself and then I can just clean up. And this is
Yeah.
how this is my thought process. And I ended up winning that match somehow. And I had like a little delay before the finals. And because I'm waiting for the B side now. And I was looking at it and I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, this is I mean, I could feel it. I'm like, I got there, but like, God, it was so bad. It was such a bad mindset. And so what I did is I pictured, you remember in Back to the Future when the guy has the Polaroid and he starts fading off the Polaroid?
Yeah.
So I realized that there's two different things at stake here. One was the outcome of this tournament because I wanted to win the tournament and that would be cool. But then the other thing that was at stake, the problem is that say I got what I wanted. I played my C game and I was weak and controlling, and somehow I have enough of a skill edge, or it's a bar table, and I'm able to wobble my B or C game across the finish line and win the tournament. What's that do for me? Well, I get to pat myself on the back that I won a tournament, but I know the truth. That was not high level. And what happens when I go to Florida and play Roberto Gomez? Am I just going to sit on 4-inch holes? Am I just going to sit there and be like, maybe if I play my C game, I'll have easy enough layouts and he'll dog it to me? Like
Right.
that does not scale. That doesn't lead anywhere. That mindset doesn't lead anywhere. So even if I win this one tournament, that's the end of it then, because you're not going to, that doesn't lead
Yeah.
anywhere. You're not just going to play your C game and you're not going to cover your eyes, play your C game and hope people dog it to you. That's not a good career game plan. So then the alternative is you can pick a mindset where you say, I don't care. If I lose, I lose, but I'm not playing to win this tournament. I'm playing for my career. I'm playing in a way that leads somewhere. And I joked about the Polaroid. Like I have this picture of who I might be someday. The matches I'll win, the tournament results I'll get, the Fargo I'll get, the level of play I'll achieve, and how it'll feel to put it together. And all that future is on that Polaroid. And when I start getting controlly and weak and thinking like I just want what I want this to be over with, and I want to get an easy shot, and I just want to limp through and win, that whole Polaroid starts to fade when I start thinking like that. And so I have to ask myself, which is more important to me, this match or my career? And I look at the fading Polaroid. I say, I might lose this match, but I can't lose my career. So I don't care. I would rather lose attacking with the right mindset than than limp through this match and get some short-term result and do it in a way that doesn't lead anywhere. And so I ask myself, game or career? Game or career? Which do I want? My game or my career? And I can't let the Polaroid fade. And so what does that have to do with what we were talking about? We were just talking about the purpose. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I fight for is I fight to keep that Polaroid from fading. And so it's you have to have an idea. You have to have we talked about goals, but in the end, guys, you have to have a picture that you're shooting to make real. And the other thing that I think about, and then I'll let you respond, this one's real short, is sometimes you can figure out what that goal should be because it's just the opposite of what you don't want. So if you're having trouble figuring out where you want to be, think about what would happen if you default. So like Jesse, let's just say you're like, you know what, this is pointless. I don't feel like fighting this fight. And let's just say that what happens is you stop going to these tournaments and then you stick to just hitting balls in your basement or playing a few local tournaments now and then when you're really bored. And over time, everybody else is getting better and your Fargo falls 10, 20, 30 points. And all of a sudden there's 20 guys around town and people, instead of being the top player in Minnesota or one of them, next thing you know, you're just like some guy that used to play good and you're now we fast forward 10 years from now and you're in your mid 40s and you're just like, think about a local player that like he used to be good for his time, but he even if he was playing his best, he wouldn't be good for today's age, and he's not even playing his best. And he's just some guy that used to get there when the fields were easier a long time ago. And you're and so then and then you don't even feel like playing because you don't play as good as you used to, and you just I don't know. It's just like you fade away, and maybe just kind of like I don't know. It's just like maybe that's not the best example of how to sketch it out, but like you could picture what you don't want to have happen. And sometimes you play, it's like, what's the purpose of my fight? It's like, well, or you quit altogether and you just quit and say, yeah, I just, I couldn't be the player I wanted to be in the parallel universe, so I just quit. And it's like to me, a lot of times, like I remember having a horrible tournament one time and I was driving back from New York and I'm like, why do I do this? Like nobody's making me do this. I am doing this by choice, and it's miserable and torturous and devastating. And I'm driving home for 16 hours thinking about like how I played poorly and fell short, and I'm not the player I want to be. And even if I was, it wouldn't matter because there's no payoff. And I'm like, why? I don't have to do this. But for me, the idea of like just coaching pool and talking about it because I'm not good enough to play. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, because I can't handle a fire anymore. Like when I'm too old to handle the fire, it's like, I don't know. So in the end, what I'd say is I'm fighting for the Polaroid. And I'm also thinking about what's, what's the alternative. And the only reason I play, like the only reason I've never quit pool, you know this, I've never quit pool, is because however bad the reality is in this universe, if I can compare it to giving up and quitting is so much worse that however painful and devastating and fruitless my pool journey is, if I compare it to quitting, it's better than that. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
that's
what are your
fair.
thoughts on those two things? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I feel like this one ties into a lot of conversations we've had in the past, even on drives and stuff. But I think you and I have always kind of looked at this slightly different because
Hmm.
you you enjoy like you really enjoy the process of it. Whereas like if I'm just completely transparent, it's not necessarily a results thing. Like I am definitely an output person. Like I lost my drive for pool when I started figuring out how to make at least decent sums of money, in other ways. And then it's like pool just kind of dropped off the face of the earth because I just saw that there was not an end. There was no route I could take in pool where I could make more or get more things for my own life that I wanted by going down that path. So a lot of my killer instinct just like essentially overnight just like fell off the map. So we look at that slightly different, but what I will say is that I do agree in a sense that if you look at pool where, yeah, if you just completely quit or if you just stay local, you will eventually become irrelevant, and then that's going to take away like we as a competitor, you do have this thing inside you that's like, I still want to like be the best that I can be. So to just like intentionally almost like force yourself not to do that, it's kind of it's kind of a dumb decision. It's just, but you also have to do it in a way that's like not detrimental to the rest of your life, right? Like if you turn around tomorrow and you're like, I don't even care how painful this is. I don't care if I never see my kids again. I don't care if I ever pay a bill. I'm going on the road full time. I'd be like, well, Debbie, maybe we need to, talk about this a little bit, but
So
there's
you
a
know what's
healthy balance,
interesting? What's interesting, Jesse, it's kind of like you could talk about the pros and cons of perfectionism. People that don't have high standards aren't going to get there. But when you start thinking about the parallel universe version of yourself and those standards of how perfectionistic or high you could have been in some other world, if those standards make you so discouraged or unappreciative of what you have that you get discouraged and don't care and lose interest, um, then it can hurt that way. So you have to have high enough standards to push yourself and have a vision of what you think you're capable of. But if
yeah.
that vision of what you think you're capable of is so out of reach and so unrealistic that you compare yourself to that and lose interest, then you quit because you're not living up to what you think you ought to do. And
Yep.
so there's a story, and I forget the name. I never read the book, but there was actually the something letters. And sorry, somebody's gonna laugh at me. I think was it C.S. Lewis, the guy that wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. He wrote the letters. Anyway, the premise. All I remember is the premise was that like this demon was mentoring another demon on how to corrupt a mortal man and how to destroy his life, and that the idea was that they were writing letters back and forth, and it was like the book was somehow like how this demon was being mentored to destroy this guy's life. And the guy says you don't try to like tempt him with evil, and you don't try to get him to turn to darkness. You don't need evil to wreck the guy's life. You need apathy. You need him to feel you need him to feel apathetic. You need him to feel nihilistic. You need him to feel like things don't matter, to give up on purpose. That was the way to, anyways, that was the whole premise of one of the underlying premises. And that's what I feel like is, I know I was trying to nail down a point, which is our own standards. If they make us feel nihilistic, then you have to own that. And that's why I was so hard on the no parallel universe thing. Quit it, man. We can't lose sight. There's everybody has two things. We have what we have and we have what we don't have. What do they say? Life is about not about getting what you want, it's about wanting what you get. And as long as we focus on what we don't have and how we wish it was in some other world, it just is very demotivating and discouraging and it leads to apathy and defeat. And it's like I feel like you have to have a vision that inspires you like a compass to navigate, like you said, the champion mindset, how you respond to adversity. But we have to assign meaning in the real world. And the hardest thing for guys that are perfectionistic and all or nothing, a guy like you or me, or we all struggle with this. But like if there's some voice inside of you that thinks that that's an excuse to assign zero meaning to what we're doing, like what you are doing in Florida, because you didn't win, because you're not the champion, because you didn't cash, because your results weren't there, because you're not the player you could have been, this is all pointless and none of it means anything. Think about the underlying moral of that rant. The underlying moral of that thought process is what you're doing doesn't matter, Jesse, so why bother? And it's like when
Yeah.
you think about it, where's that? What like that is the enemy, bro. That is the enemy.
No, it's true. I mean, I agree with that, at least to a certain extent. I think, yeah, I mean, it's weird, man. As human beings, we're all different, right? There's it's we I so I had a conversation with he won't mind with Dave O'Keefe, our buddy Dave, about
Yeah.
this because for like, I mean, I know how I used to feel about pool, and then I was like nowadays, like I genuinely get like excited when I can stack up like probably way more work than I think I should be able to handle. But that's the game I like to play and see how much I can squeeze in and try to hit like new personal records per week or whatever, right? It's like that's like what I enjoy nowadays. But it's like to what end though, right? Like what does that really do for you? It's not really fulfilling. It's just I don't know. It's like it's kind of what keeps me and he mentioned something too because I was like eventually like your body's got to be getting broken down, right? And like you've done well enough like where you would probably just want to retire, right? Like one thing he mentioned is he's like, well, a lot of the reason why I still like to work a ton is because I get to wake up and win every day. Like I'm one of the best at what I do and I know I'm going into my game and I'm going to win. And I'm like, I guess I never really thought about it like that. Maybe that's what I was looking for. And then I sat back and I was like, well, yeah, I guess that's how I kind of feel too in a sense. Like there's no other real reason. I mean, money's always great, but we all need money, but like that doesn't really do it just allows you to have a little bit extra comfort,
So
right?
there's a couple things going on, and this is really cool. So people in relationships form different I'm not an expert on this stuff, but there's interpersonal games that are played where people take on different roles, like caregiver versus victim. One person plays a victim role and they're always getting into trouble and messing things up, and then their partner is always bailing them out and being there for them or fixing things, and then the caregiver gets to feel good about themselves because they are being the martyr and the giver, and they can look in the mirror and say, I know I'm a good person because I'm acting good every day. And then the person that's a victim, I don't remember what they get out of it or whatever, but they get to feel like I'm loved because somebody finds me important enough to take care of me even when I'm a screw up, or if they can see me at my worst and still love me, then I must not be that bad. And that only if I'm at my worst can I really feel validated, because if I'm at my best, maybe they're conditionally loving me. And the only way I know it's unconditional is if I'm my worst version of myself. And if they still stick with me, then I guess that means that they won't ever leave me because I'm afraid of abandonment. So I have to test the rope every day. So like there's all kinds of weird crap. The same thing in our lives. Like I was talking about this in one of my Q&As in the Patreon group um, recently. And we all have negative voices or doubts. And so let's suppose that somebody has a negative voice inside of themselves that's real deep. Like you don't know, it's not even like thoughts you have. It's just like your lens of how you see yourself in the world is tainted in a way that you didn't even realize because it's the only way you've ever seen the world. But somewhere deep inside is a feeling that it's not enough or that you got to do more or that your value as a human and your worthiness of love is somehow conditioned upon how much status or power or prestige or accomplishment or it's earned, it's not inherent. And somewhere deep inside of you there's a part of you that believes that your value is in jeopardy because maybe you're not the person you should be and you're not good enough. Well, then when you fail at something, you bomb out of a tournament or you make a mistake, that voice deep inside of you, it's like a wound where it's like, see, that's why you're you. That's why you're not enough. That's why you're not good enough. But when you win and you have positive evidence from the world, there's just this little temporary like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not a piece of crap. And it's like that deep dark voice that prods you where it hurts, you don't even notice. It's like it gives you a moment of relief. It's like if you were in pain and you took a pain medication and you're just like, oh, I don't hurt right now. Maybe I'm not worthless. And so people medicate themselves through achievement, right? They medicate themselves through achievement.
Sure.
And there's so many different ways we can go with this. One thing that does is you talk about, where does pressure come from during a pool match? Why do people feel pressure? People feel pressure. What's at stake? And they don't even know what's at stake. They're like, well, Fargo points, wins and losses, what other people think. What's really at stake is how they will feel after the match. And if after the match, if they do well, they will have accomplishment that relieves their own negative voice and pain. And if they, on the other hand, if they fail the match, then their negative voice will wake up and say, see all this evidence that you're not good enough, and they will feel bad. So really what's at stake is, if I win, I will feel either really good or at least a relief from the pain. But if I lose, it'll be this intense feeling of insufficiency that will feel really bad. Well, if the difference between winning and losing means I'm going to feel really good or feel really bad, that creates pressure. It would be like if I said, if you miss this ball, I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to stab you in the leg. It's like, well, that would create pressure, right? You're afraid of the pain. Well, you're creating this pain by setting up a system where you're using outcomes to medicate your own internal demons. And and so when I teach mental game, which I do, I talk about this in much more depth about what you can do about that and how you can think differently and eventually manage these things to where it doesn't create these huge extremes. But what that means for you is that people use achievement. So if you're out there crushing it at work every day and you're stacking up cash and you're like, look at the week I just had, that achievement is, you're using something in there to fend off something else. Because if you were totally unwounded and whole and totally self-accepting, then you might not feel that same sense of accomplishment because it wouldn't, the sense of accomplishment is it a sense of accomplishment or is it actually a fending off of a negative that you don't even realize you're doing? And
Yeah.
then I already know where this road goes. So for people that are with me, here it goes. People say, but I don't want to let go of my need for accomplishment because that's what drives me. That voice drives me. And I use that. So I'm a champion. And that's why I'm so successful. And so your voice says you need this insufficiency feeling because that's what leads to your success. But the two things I say to that are, it's very paradoxical, circular thinking. It's this thing where I'm glad I hate tomatoes, Jesse. I am glad I hate tomatoes because if I like tomatoes, I'd start eating lots of tomatoes. And I hate tomatoes. It's very circular thinking. It doesn't make any sense. And so when people say, I'm glad I hate myself, because if I didn't hate myself, I wouldn't drive myself so hard to to be successful, and then I wouldn't hate myself. Or like I said that poorly. It's like if I accepted who I am, that would be terrible because then I wouldn't drive myself to crazy heights. And then if I don't drive myself to crazy heights, I might not be able to accept who I am. It's like it's circular. So people think that they need negative voices for motivation and direction. They need to be told where to go and what to do, motivation and direction. And so I'm rambling. I'm talking about a lot of different things. It's clear in my head. you don't necessarily need to hate who you are or feel deeply insufficient to be motivated. And so I find it interesting. When I hear people talk about achievement and how they enjoy the release of achievement, like it's to me that just feels like there's a wound deep down and there's some personal game being played where that's medicating in some way. And that as we grow, I think it's always interesting to see how we can heal ourselves to where it would be really cool if achievement wasn't necessary. But the question, a lot of people, their whole life has been built around this personal game of medicating themselves, and the life is about achieving things so I feel better about myself. And then what happens if you feel good enough about yourself where you don't need that? Now what's my purpose? And that's the last piece. It's like, well, what's the heck is my purpose if it's not like if you won the lottery and you didn't need to go work anymore? It's like, well, what's my purpose if it's not to go out and kill? And this leads to the last point, which is I was listening the other day, a guy was talking about why go to the moon again? Why go to the moon again? And the guy says, why do anything? Like, why go to your living room? Like, if you're why do anything? At some point, this is our life. And so there's some beauty in I think a lot of beauty in just figuring out who is the version of ourselves. What are our options? And our
Yeah,
options are we can give up and quit and be nothing. We can compare ourselves to a parallel universe and then not bother. Or we could be the version of ourselves we can be. And then even when we look at that and say it's not what we could have been, or it's not good enough, or it's not parallel universe version, or whatever, it's like I think accepting who we are deep down and then being the best version of ourselves is a big is and I think and then knowing it matters. And any voice that tells you it doesn't matter, whether it's parallel universe comparisons or whether it's like doubts and negative demons and all this stuff, it's like don't fall for it. It matters. And
sure.
even if you go 2-and-out in Florida, it matters. Okay, that was a lot. That was a lot,
No, that's
but
fair. Yeah, I would say yeah. Um, it's a lot to unpack, but I
yeah,
would say
but the personal game about achievement being medication. Yeah.
yeah, the interesting thing with that is I would say I actually fully agree with that. And I even know that about myself that that's like you're saying like you're trying to cover up something else like either whether it be some sort of wound or lack of fulfillment in other areas, whatever you want to I'm sure you could spend hours kind of unpacking all that, right, about each person, but the thing is though like if at least for me like doing like taking that path and like chasing the it's not necessarily about money, it's not necessarily about like how much work you can get done or whatever. It's like we all have to find a way to sort of medicate in a way in the world we live in to try to feel sane. And some people do that through like the way that I try to do it. And there's other people who need to be on a pool league, a softball league, fantasy football, so they can stay social. Like they found like their mix or whatever it is, right? And they only work 40 hours a week because anymore it drives them insane, whatever it is, and they need X amount of time with their family. Like I feel like we all have to customize that in ways that like sort of best fit our own internal needs, right? And maybe you'll disagree with us, but it's like it's almost well it's always easier to find your way to like self-medicate than it is to actually attack the real underlying issues because there's not really like there's not really a roadmap for that, right? Like you could argue that people could go to therapy and figure that stuff out, but it's not as easy as, as what it looks like on the surface. But we all have access to endless ways to self-medicate, right? So that's why it's like we all end up doing the same thing in different ways. I'm not saying you do this. I'm not saying
No,
you
you're
might not
you're
be as
not
crazy,
wrong.
but that's what's kind of interesting about the world. So it's like so for me, all I'm going to say is like I don't disagree that like even the way that I choose to do it is in a lot of ways very unhealthy. I'll just say that I'm very thankful that I have what I have to be able to do that because I know what the other side of it looks like. It's very depressing. It's very miserable. I know what playing pool full time is like when you're relying on those dopamine hits and when you're dealing with a lot of down negative emotions. It's like it's a really rough existence, man. So
So that and
yeah,
I've talked before about how pro pool is not really a measure of pool ability. It's more of a measure of mental illness. And that I joke about it, but there's a lot of people that have a lot of perfectionism and feelings of insufficiency that medicate that not just off short-term results but off grandiose narratives, and that they have big hero stories where they've got to be something special and they've got to prove it to the world, and that they're on some hero's quest where they're going to someday it's going to pay off and the whole world will see that they're one of the winners and that they're worthy of love, and that the people that have these weird, I mean, I know because that's what I was when I was 14 or 15. I get it. So like it's kind of sad to see the people, because it's like the amount that they play and the intensity what they play with, they're not fighting to win tournaments. They're fighting to be good enough to be worthy of their own acceptance. And it's like, and I think about like the scene in Good Will Hunting where it's like, it's not your fault. Like nobody's ever been given, no one's ever really just broken down and gotten a hug. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
but then the funny part is I know people too that aren't like you and me. Like you and I are, I'm not saying I'm different or I'm evolved past you. I'm like, we're very similar in the way that we're driven in these ways and we're rewarded and medicated. I do know people though that maybe they have their own problems and their own wounds, but I know people that don't have the issue that I'm describing. And it's interesting to me because it's like watching another species. Like, so you don't wake up every day with this feeling that if you don't give 101%, somehow you're going to be burned in hell forever because you're not good enough. Like you don't have that. Like, how does that like, so what do you do? Like, I don't get it. Like if you could wave a
Yeah,
wand and
yeah.
suddenly be okay with yourself, but so then what do you do? Why function? Why do anything if it's not to try to fight off some voice that's telling you it's not enough? Like, how else do
Right.
you live?
And you're
And
like envious of their level of being content with it, you know?
like, I'm
But then on the
confused. Like,
flip
I don't
side, they're
understand. And,
envious of
and
your
these
drive, you know?
And these people are like,
So,
well, I do things because they're fun. And I like to do that because I enjoy that. And I thought that I would do that because I thought that it would be nice and somebody else might like that. And it would be mean, and I like to spend time, showing up for people in my life that I care about and, being there for family, spending time. Sometimes I like to go to a theater because theaters are fun. And I'm just like, so you just like, I don't, it's so weird, man, but there is a way to live that's like that. And so for a lot of people, anybody that's made it this far on the podcast, you're probably more like me and Jesse than you are those other people. So like, anyway, yeah,
they're probably in tears on the other end of the screen, like realize
yeah,
that you're ripping apart their entire life, like,
they're on their way to the
you
Golden
know?
Gate Bridge. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, full
that's
circle.
messed up. Yeah,
Awesome,
no,
awesome.
it's
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So
no,
let's,
it's an interesting topic though. That's I'm sure we could find ways to kind of tap into that another time too, so we don't waste like
yeah, yeah, we're good,
endless
we're
amount of
good.
time going down that rabbit hole. But it definitely is. It's a fascinating part of life, man, and we're all like what drives us. But specifically, getting back to pool, man, it is. I would say for me, that's like the one thing that I really struggle with the most these days. It's not like finding time to, I mean, finding time to practice too, but like I do enjoy getting together and hitting balls with Hank recently. Even hitting balls by myself is fine. I mean, if you and I ever have time, obviously it's fun.
Next week,
But
let's hit balls next week because I'm going to the U.S. Open too, so I want to hit balls
okay,
with you.
that sounds good. Yeah, but just the trickiest part, man, is like to be able to like on command turn off the rest of your life and then just like for the next hour and a half or 2 hours, I'm gonna give it my all. And it's not because I'm desperate for the win. It's just because I want to leave this match and know that like I gave my full fight and like I feel good about my effort, you know?
So
It's
it's
not forget about the result.
what I feel like. So like we can talk about fuel and speed. So like suppose that if you had a budget, you're I don't know anything about racing guys, so I'm sorry. But suppose you had $100,000 budget. And at $100,000 budget, you could build a car that could hit 200 miles an hour. And let's suppose that in terms of fuel, you had a tank that could hold 10 gallons. Anything more than that would be too heavy. I have no idea what I'm talking about. It probably doesn't use fuel, but I don't care. This is my analogy. So if that was possible, but then, and let's say you've even raced at 200 miles an hour with 10 gallons of fuel, and then all of a sudden that car gets totaled and you can't replace it because you don't have that much money. And you've only got $40,000 and you can only build a car that can go 180. And not only that, but you've only got a half a tank of fuel at most. You can only afford 5 gallons of fuel, or your new car can only hold 5 gallons. Then the whole time you're racing, you're like, I used to go faster. There's cars. I wish I had a car that could go 200, and I don't have as much fuel either. So like we're talking like what your top speed is physically is different than what it could be if you played full time. And then
Right.
also the sense of purpose. You're like, my goals aren't as clear and exciting as they could be. My sense of purpose and fight and why am I doing this is not as clear. So not only am I not playing as well as I could, but I don't even want it as much as I feel like I should or could. So I'm operating at 80% at 80%. And what's the point? This is just slow and chunky and ah. But what I would say to that is this is the only car you got. You can either race it or you can park on the side and talk about the car you don't have. And that's it, man. Those are your choices. Sorry, life's
I
hard.
think I'm just gonna park it, wait till the seniors tour, my friend. I gotta
So,
reserve that gas.
so,
So,
so, no, man, you can't do that because I plan
I'm
on
just
spacing the
kidding.
senior
No.
too. That was my plan. So,
No,
no, but like really though, you have to understand that, and then here's my point. You have to make that part of the game. It's like, okay, it was like if you're gonna play a handicap tournament. Have you ever played a handicap tournament? I know you have because I've won half on some of those.
okay.
So when you play a handicap tournament, you don't just sit there and whine about the handicap the whole time. I mean, I do. That's why I don't play. Like I did just park. But the point is, it's part of the game. Or suppose somebody let's suppose you gave a guy a handicap, and this guy suppose there was a guy that wanted to play you for money, and you had to give him the wild 7-8, and you liked your end of it. You're like, all right, I'll give you the wild 7-8. And then you guys get up and start playing. And every time he makes a 7 or 8, you're like, oh man, how come that this is so unfair? This game is rigged. And that's not how nine ball should work. Like, that's the game. Bro, playing with a car that only goes 180 and has a half tank of gas, that's the game. It's not the game should be different. I should have a different car. It should go faster. I should hold more fuel. That's parallel universe. That's what I'm saying. That's parallel universe thinking. I don't care what you could do with that car. I want to see what you could do with the 180 mile. Can you still win a race with a hundred? I know you can win a race with a
Yeah,
two. So Jesse, the parallel universe Jesse could win a tournament. It could win a major. Good for you.
sure.
But what I want to see is what can you do with the 180 mile an hour half tank, Jesse?
That's fair.
Make
The
that part of the game.
the only it's more of a joke, but it's like the only rebuttal I have to that is the added difficulty to that is it like somebody in my position is like I have to, be in that car that goes 180 against a bunch of cars that go 220, 230.
Yeah.
But every other pool player, or not every, a lot of other pool players, due to like Fargo caps, can have their car that goes 180 where it's a 182 cap. So that's the tricky part is like what you're saying is like you only have one car get in the race. I agree with it, but it is
You're
extra hard
right. So
when everybody else around you gets to be in their weight class, and
yeah,
then you're
yeah. So
forced to get in
everybody
with the
else has a
heavyweight.
weight division except for you, and
Yeah.
you're always going to be mid pack.
Yeah,
No matter
and I
how you're
haven't
never
worked
going to
out
win it. Well,
in like
trust me,
six
Jesse.
months.
I've
It's like,
I've said I'll never win a pool tournament again.
yeah,
I'll
it's
never win a
tough,
pool
man. It's
tournament
tough to
again
swallow. I'll say
because
that.
I'm
But
because I'm going to play the U.S. Open and the Texas Open, and odds are I won't be the wild card at the Texas Open Calcutta. Okay, so
yeah.
like I'll never win a tournament again.
I feel like you and I should just start doing challenge matches just so at least so one of us gets to experience winning again, you know?
If we played, one of us we can't both lose, right?
Yeah, I mean what I think. I mean,
I don't know. Let's
but
let's
yeah.
let's play a set to 100 for 10,000 and we'll just chop it.
There you go.
Anyway, so and then and anyway, I was gonna be like, and then you let me win, and then I don't chop it, I don't give you your half. Anyway, but no, that's you really have to make that part of the game because as long as you're thinking it ought to be different than it is. We're wrapping up, guys. We're wrapping up. But I like to say, anytime you have negative emotion, it's proof that you're looking at something wrong. So if you feel distraught by the way reality is, reality doesn't change to match how you feel it ought to be. You have to change how you feel it ought to be to match reality. So this is how reality is. Reality is you're not the player you could be. You'll never win a major, and you'll never play as good as you could be in some parallel universe. And you got this 180 car with a half tank of gas. And so you have to change how you think the world ought to be to how
Yeah,
it is. And that's part of the game, man. That's part of the game.
right.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, sorry.
So the funny part is I had some stuff I really wanted to get into, but this went way too long, and that's probably because of you. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
so I do want to let people know I didn't even get a chance. I wanted to let people know I do online coaching, $20 a month, online coaching, guys, $20 a month. It's group online coaching. I'll link it in the video, but it's at if you Google search Slate Billiard Club Patreon, or you can go to my website at mnpoolbootcamp.com, MN for Minnesota, mnpoolbootcamp.com. I have links to my online training group, 20 bucks a month. I didn't even have a chance. I have some stuff I want to share. For now, I will just say I am positive that if you follow my lead, you will improve. That's it. That's the shortest I could say it. I could explain why. I could talk about where, what I train, how I do it, all this stuff, breakthroughs we're having, and stuff I want to share. I guess I'll have to do that in the next pod. But like, like everybody is wandering around directionless, focusless, with no urgency and no focus and a lack of awareness on they're wandering around looking for stuff and piecemealing around and trying stuff and tinkering around. I know the short direct path. It's the 80-20 rule. It's not even. It's 95-5. It's 99-1. There's 1% of stuff that matters more than everything else. So fire all that other crap. Quit surfing, YouTube videos and algorithms. Quit practicing whatever you're practicing. Figure out what are the 3, 4 things that are holding you back, and let's get really clear on what they are, and let's put them front and center, and let's attack them head on with urgency and clarity and direction. And that's what I do. So God damn it, let's go. I'm mad. Let's go. All right, there's my quick plug. I'll give you the longer version another time with what we're training on. But I guess I had to plug. And you can email me info@mnpoolbootcamp.com. You got anything else, Jesse?
That's it for today, man. That's all
All
I
right,
got.
that was awesome, man.
All right.
Talk soon.
All right, bye.